Hello everyone and welcome to Wednesday. Yesterday I told you guys I would be bringing you my coverage of the Apple event that went on yesterday. I didn't get a chance to sit down and watch it until tonight, but I just finished watching it. It was about 90 minutes long, and I'm going to bring you my thoughts. If you weren't aware, the Apple event pretty much just covered iOS 7 and the iPhone. Well, the new iPhone. The new iPhones, because there are actually two new iPhones. There's the iPhone 5S, which everyone expected. Then there's also the iPhone 5C. Now, I read Mac rumors pretty much every day, so I've seen this stuff coming for like months and months and months. But it's still interesting to actually watch the event and see all of the different ways they have decided to present it. There's always going to be a video. There's always going to be a Jony Ive video of him going, "And the corners are so round." So you can expect to see stuff like that, and I did. Interesting things they did in this event. A lot of it was about the iPhone, but there was a pretty good portion devoted to iOS 7, but nothing really new. Nothing that you didn't already hear from WWDC. This was kind of like a mini conference. All of the big news that we wanted to hear, especially the stuff I wanted to hear about the Mac Pro, was back in June for WWDC. But they did hit on a few things with iOS 7. It's just none of it was really new information. The only thing that I noticed that they brought to the table for iOS 7 that was new, that they hadn't talked about before, was actually one of the most ridiculous parts of the event. And it was where Craig was on stage and was like, "There are new ringtones." And I'm like, what? And then he proceeded to play several ringtones, and then several of the message notification sounds. I mean, it wasn't like a bad part of the event, but it was humorous. It was very comical. It was also different, because normally you can kind of see everything that's going to happen in an Apple event, you know, just based on past Apple events. I mean, actually, you could parody an Apple event so well because you know exactly how it's going to be. Tim Cook is going to come out and talk about the technology. Phil is going to come up and say something about how things are great, and you know, the graphics are better, which he did. And like I said before, there's going to be a video of Jony Ive sitting there in his gray V-neck talking about, you know, the circles or something. Like I said, it's actually really easy to make fun of, but I do like Apple. They do make good products. So moving past iOS 7, since there really wasn't any new information, it was mostly about the iPhone 5C and the 5S. First up, they talked about the 5C. If you're not familiar, it's basically a new iPhone. It's going to be replacing the iPhone 5. They're basically getting rid of the iPhone 5. They're still going to keep the 4S around, but it'll be the iPhone 4S, then the 5C, and the 5S. So the 5C is more or less a slightly upgraded iPhone 5, very slightly, with the difference being that the phone itself is plastic. Although they try to, I don't want to say they avoided that during the event, but they talked about how it was good plastic and not crappy plastic, and it was nice. And then they're also making custom cases now. So Apple's really getting into the whole case thing, because they actually had custom cases for the 5S as well. Nothing really to talk about with the C. It is pretty much the iPhone 5, with the exception of it's in color, which the C apparently stands for color, even though a lot of people online were saying that the C stands for cheap. But it's going to be $100 for the 16 gig model with a 2-year contract, so it's kind of like the new entry-level iPhone. Well, unless you count the 4S, which is cheaper. Maybe that's the cheaper one. The 5C is the entry level. The 5S is the premium. Anyway, the 5S, which is what the conference was really about. Available in 3 colors: black, champagne, which is what they had been saying online, but in the conference they called it gold, and then space gray. I don't know what space gray is. When I think of space, I think of black. I think of nothingness, but they called it space gray. They could have just called it silver, and that would have been fine, but no, space gray. Over my head. The biggest improvement to the phone, besides the 64-bit architecture, they went to a 64-bit architecture, which probably down the road is going to be a really, really major thing, is the camera. And most people with smartphones do a lot of stuff with their camera, do a lot of photo taking, and the improvements are good. Excellent. It has a dual LED flash now that has 2 different tones, and the examples that they showed were really, really cool. They said it's actually the first time it's ever been done in a camera, period. And I mean, I trust Apple to do an excellent job when it comes to things like that, and from what they showed at the event, it looked good. There's new iOS 7 camera-y stuff that I think is exclusive to iOS 5. Things like holding down the photo button and it'll take like multiple shots. I'm not sure if that's going to be capable on anything but the 5S, but that was also presented. So a lot of new camera stuff, 64-bit architecture. And then the last thing that they wanted to show, which is really what all of the buzz about has been online, is their sapphire lens crystal home button fingerprint scanner. But they call it Touch ID, which rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Basically, the home button now has a fingerprint scanner, and I've read reviews online of different media that have actually had the chance to use it in person, and they said it is perfectly accurate. So once again, Apple does do a good job whenever they when they do innovate. So there was a lot of people that said that it did work. It wasn't one of those things like, I couldn't get it to work. Like every single person that tried it said that the success rate was 100%. Basically, whenever people lock their phones, they normally put a passcode on it. So whenever you get back into your phone, you have to type in your 4-digit passcode. And I mean, that's not just an iPhone thing. Even on Android, Android does the slidey thing, but it's the same concept. It's something you have to do to access your phone. So Apple's thinking was, why don't we put a fingerprint scanner in there, because then it's faster, it's something that you always have on you, and it's, you know, unique to you, because every single fingerprint is different. So that's what they did, and they built it into the home button. Very cool. I mean, it's a very neat idea. It's stored locally, so it's not in their servers or anything like that. So it is secure. And you can also use that to do things like iTunes purchases or App Store purchases. So that's neat. That's really cool. I think that is a really neat addition, not only to get into the phone, but especially for purchases. I don't know, not a whole lot to say about that, just, you know, forward thinking. I think that's an interesting idea. Fingerprint scanners aren't new. Actually, there was a heyday a few years ago with laptops putting them like on the board, like next to the touchpad. You know, you could lock your laptop like that, but they never really took off. Probably because they weren't really implemented all that well, and a lot of the software that used them kind of sucked. But whenever you have a company like Apple that is, you know, melting together their hardware and their software, they can make it work really well. So I'm sure that it will work well, as reviews already stated. So what it really comes down to is, as an owner of the iPhone 5, am I jealous of the iPhone 5S? No. I mean, is it cool? Yeah, but is it worth upgrading from like the 5? No. No, it's not. One of the cool things that they did announce, though, is that some of the best apps on the iPhone, which are their productivity apps, Pages, Numbers, and what's the other one, Keynote, as well as iPhoto and iMovie, are going to be free for all new iOS customers. In other words, if you buy a new phone now, you'll get those apps free. But if for everyone that already has a phone, it still costs, I think, like $40 for all of those apps. So don't get excited if you're like me and have an iPhone 5. You have to buy the new iPhone. That being said, is now a good time to jump into an iPhone? Yeah. I would say that the iPhone 5S is, you know, huge improvements. Well, I can't say huge. Improvements over the iPhone 5. So if you've never owned a smartphone, or if you've never owned an iPhone, you've been thinking about getting an iPhone, the 5S would be a good place to start. Is it worth the extra $100 over the iPhone 5C? I think so. I think it would be worth the extra $100, just for the fact that you're probably going to be taking a lot of photos with your phone, and I think that between the 64-bit architecture and a lot of the new improvements with the camera, and the Touch ID thing is pretty cool, I think it's collectively worth an extra $100. So, but I wouldn't upgrade from a 5, or maybe a 4S, but probably not that either. Anyway, that is my conclusion on the Apple event. It was a small event. It was nothing like WWDC, but it was not supposed to be. Let me know your thoughts. And there's one final thing that I do occasionally clarify. Please keep the comments civil. I know that there are people who really, really, really love Mac stuff, and there are people who really, 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 really hate Mac stuff. Please do keep it civil. Whether your comments are pro or anti or neutral, Apple, don't start a war down there. Please, don't do that. That's stupid. All we're doing is discussing the event, so keep your passions to a minimum. That being said, this is going to be the end of the vlog. Thank you so much for watching. Please discuss all of your Apple events and iPhone and iOS 7 things down below. And I do have to conclude by saying that I am excited about iOS 7. It comes out September 18th, which is just a few days. I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty excited. Mal's excited. My parents are a little worried because they just got used to, using their phones. But I said, it'll be fine. It'll probably be fine. Thanks for watching. Let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?
Butter cake filled with vanilla pudding and topped with chocolate ganache.
Yes, exactly. That, what you said more elegantly than I would have said.
Oh, God. Idiot. You went the wrong way, pal.